So this one you'll appreciate the players and where this game comes from. Soviet Championship.
I thought it was going to be like Rosman Rosen 2022 online.
Right. No, this is Tolish against Simagan from 1947.
Wow, that is a very Russian name.
Vladimir Pavlovich Simagan. Right.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, in Russian, they don't refer to each other like that. They refer to each other as Vladimir Pavlovich, like the second name. Yeah. So.
Yeah, the patronymic, I think, is.
Wow, this looks really juicy for white, this position.
Exactly. So this is one of those positions which looks really, really juicy, but you have to zero in on a specific idea, and that's where the difficulty comes from.
Uh-huh. Okay, so naturally, first instinct is something involving a rook sacrifice on e6.
Mm-hmm.
Rook e6, d6. Okay, we can't do anything in terms of d7.
Right.
My other idea is to go that way, but I mean queen d7. But this is always an idea. This is one thing. Like I said, I'm very bad at looking at what black wants. I mean, it seems like this is kind of the major.
This is an idea, yeah. Rook h5. But what is why does rook h5 work?
Because of all this.
Right. And if there wasn't all this, then what type... There's another idea that I'm hoping you see. Other than rook takes c6, which is what? It's similar to rook e6.
Yeah. I'm thinking. Yeah, I mean, I guess trying to make f5 work, and then some rook f5 sacrifice. I mean, the other idea I had is queen g5, queen e7, but I think queen g5, you don't even have to play defense. You can just play queen d8.
Simply queen d8. Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, you win the game if you get f5, which now makes me think, well, what do you do? I mean, is it just one of these moves?
Okay. Well, if you're making one of these moves, which one?
It's definitely not that, because then queen c6, so seems like it would be king f1.
Correct move is only winning move is king f1. Yeah, to prepare f5.
It's pretty savage.
And this is sort of a good example of, I think, targeted thinking. You start by examining the most juicy ideas, the ones that if they work, basically win you the game. Mm-hmm. And once you realize why, whether they work, if they don't work, can I troubleshoot the problem? And only if all of that doesn't work do you switch to more abstract thinking, and do you start considering the sort of second category of candidate moves like rook a3 or rook g5. But you should always start by trying to make the concrete moves work.
Right.
So king f1, very powerful move. Okay, Simagan played queen d8. Continue.
Man, that looks unbelievably depressing.
And we should show it to the chat, by the way, because a lot of people in your chat were proposing the immediate f5, why it doesn't work.
Yeah, just my chat, not your chat, my chat. G takes f5, and you're pinned.
Yeah, rook f5, ef, and you can't take back on f5. You can actually give this check. But
that's funny. Yeah, but even king f8, like a super super disrespectful.
Doesn't even matter where black goes.
Yeah. Okay, so that doesn't quite work.
Prophylaxis.
Queen d8. Yeah, now if f5, then man, I would in a game I would just play it and hope it wins. So f5, I think black has to take with the g pawn. I don't even see a immediate win after ef5, but I just rook e7. I mean, it has to be there. Rook e7, queen. Yeah,
you don't have to calculate that because you've only sacked a pawn. Like you haven't even sacrificed anything for that attack.
Yeah, is it calculate it or you don't have to calculate it?
No, you don't. And my rule, especially in blitz, is like if I've only sacrificed a pawn or even two pawns and I have a huge attack, I'm going for it without calculating it because I've taken very little risk. So if it doesn't work, the game goes on.
So f5, gf, rook f5, ef5, queen f5. If king g7, probably just rook e7, queen e7, d e7.
Very good.
Rook e8, queen d7. I mean, I guess you win all the pawns. So at the end of the day, the queen versus the two rooks is a winning endgame.
Winning endgame. So some technique. That's how the game went, actually.
Oh, wow. So f5, gf, rook f5, takes, king g7, rook e7, takes, rook e8, queen d7, and then... Wow, okay.
And then queen d7. And if king e8, find the most accurate move here. And to me, finding the correct move here... Okay, well, you can just use process of elimination. Your queen is hanging, so you have to move it. Where should you move it?
You could play rook e6 if you really want, but... where should you move it? You should move it to...
I actually really like the correct sequence here. I think it's very instructive, and there's a point to be made there. But first, I want you to name the move.
I also want me to name the move. Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I get kind of lost in these positions because I don't know what black is gonna do. Like I don't know what black's next move is, depending on what my next move is. So I'm debating between queen f4, f3.
Well, the queen f4. Okay, so black has really only one active idea, which you need to prevent. This is a move that you should definitely not allow because it creates concrete counterplay against white's king. What move are we talking about here?
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. Like, white doesn't exactly have threats. It's queen a8.
Queen a8 is a very unpleasant idea. You need to prevent it.
Yeah. I just kind of was like, I'm chilling.
By the way, queen is the supporting actress. Again, this principle comes into play. The best move is the one which keeps the queen on the least intrusive and obtrusive square. Which is what?
I guess f3 then.
f3. Yeah, a lot of people want queen e4, but queen e4 is actually a lot less accurate.
It gets in the way of rook e6 ideas.
Exactly. It gets in the way of the rooks. Queen f3 is best. And now, again, you just sort of need to take stock of what your attacking ideas are. So, for example, after black plays... just a second. After black plays rook g7, for example, the winning line is actually super, super calm. Like, it's just very straightforward once you identify the correct idea. So brainstorm. What ideas come to mind, just in general?
Well, I just saw another idea, which is kind of interesting. But just rook f6 comes to mind. Also, like a4, a5. a4, a5 comes to mind.
But to me, there's a much more pointed idea that if it works, it ends the game immediately. It's a maneuver. You pointed it out a little bit earlier.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I just completely forgot about rook a3. Wow.
But if you play rook a3 immediately, then black has what?
I guess they take your rook.
So the correct move is literally just the monkey move.
What does that mean?
It's just like, okay, I want to play rook e3, but I can't because if he takes f5. So what would somebody with no imagination play?
Rook f4?
Yeah, that's the best move, rook f4. And black can resign because this is unstoppable.
That's funny. Wow.
Rook f4 is like plus 12. Because if black plays queen b8, you can still play rook a3 because you win the rook in the end.
Wow.
And by the way, that is why queen f3 is better than queen e4. Something which you... Because in this line... sorry, rook f4...
rook g7 or...
like, for example, in this line, the queen was defending d1. And here black has this.
No, wow. Brutal.
So rook f4, very simple chess, and then rook a3, rook a8 is winning. But the key to this position, of course, is finding king f1.
Yeah, king f1 is nice. It kind of kickstarts everything.
Very good, but you found that idea relatively quickly, which is great.
You still kind of gave me a hint, though.
So no hints. No, it is the
don't even talk to me. Like, I don't, I have to figure out everything myself.
So I do have a really nice endgame that we can finish with if you're in the mood for it.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll be right back.
All right, I'll set it up in the meantime. So also, hi, I've got Levy's chat open, so I can finally take over. Hope you're enjoying. And obviously, this is a high-level lesson, so I know some of these positions are hard to follow. On my channel, there's a lot of requests for lessons with high-rated people and seeing what they look like. And I think what you're able to see is that the structure of the lesson is the same, whether I'm teaching Levy or Charlie. It's just the content is different. The types of positions that we do are just totally different. But it's not like we do anything different. We still just solve a bunch of positions and talk through a bunch of ideas and principles. It's like the same type of training. But I obviously love teaching really strong players, and Levy's a captive audience, so it's a lot of fun because he also appreciates beautiful ideas, and that makes it a lot of fun to produce examples. It's white to play. Your goal is to win this position. There is a concrete solution, so I think this is really, really lovely and really high level.
Okay.
Because it's one of those positions where black is a fortress, you have to break the fortress, and that's about it.
Okay. Black has fortress and you have to break fortress. Okay. It's
exactly. Okay. You have to try win the game. Yeah, but okay.
It's not taking the bishop, and random move like bishop d5 probably lands you in more harm than good. So the first thing I looked at was f5 with the idea of bishop c4 fg, and I think that's a winning pawn endgame. And f5 gf is the only question.
Okay.
And
very interesting move. Yeah, 5 maybe, but okay.
Yeah, I was also we just did a whole lesson on why the hell are why am I sacking a pawn in an endgame? Which makes me think it might be something like g4 to prepare the f5 idea. And after g4, bishop f7. I also am not sure, king b5,
Yeah, king b5, and it's unclear what exactly you've accomplished there. You've opened up the position a little bit, but then you have to go back to c3.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're on the right track, right? So you've come up with the general idea of somehow opening up the king side, but it's unclear how to do it specifically.
Yeah, where to from here indeed. Maybe it's h4, because normally you don't want to play h4 because h5. But in that case, f5 and bishop e2.
Excellent. So let's consider the move h4.
Let's go.
What you're saying is that if black plays h5, now you play this move.
Yeah, and then you take the h5 pawn and you win.
That's easily winning. And what about bishop f5 in this context?
I guess, well, you take on f7.
And how to assess this position?
You just have to, it's a king race. So king b5, king d5, king b4, king d6, king c3, king e5, king, d2. Really, I guess king f6, and you just win. Bishop g6, g5. Yeah, you win the race.
Actually, by only one tempo, king f2, bishop takes h5, and then you go king f4.
Yeah. So you would have to calculate the sequence, and then.
But you can also win here, by the way, by going king c3. You can milk this a little bit further, and then bishop e8. So I think there is a way to do this where you don't even get that race, but the race is also winning. So where that leaves us is that h5 loses.
Yeah, what about h6 or something?
Well, let's, your default should always be to ask, what if my opponent does nothing? So let's say king c6.
Yeah. I wonder if we have the same idea to play h5. h5.
So h5, what happens?
Yeah, h5. Oh, they can maybe take the bishop now, or h5. Okay, h5, g takes h5. If we go for that same idea with bishop e2, then there's just bishop g4, and we're not going to win that endgame.
Right.
Not to mention maybe even just h4.
Exactly, h4 is very annoying.
Yeah, they just sack and they mirror the pawns. Yeah, so h5 is my first thing that I would calculate. I'm actually thinking the idea of g4 is better now than it was a move ago somehow, but I don't know. Alternatively, we can play bishop e2 and just try to advance the pawns and always go back to c4 if necessary to break the blockade.
And what if h5?
Maybe back to c4.
Right, and then what's the next move going to be?
King b6.
Yeah,
and then f5.
And then you resort to the old idea.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so you're trying to induce h5. Now, black again is going to do nothing. King b6.
Right.
Now we continue to progress.
Yeah, I guess now g4, g5 should be played.
You advance the pawn to g5. I continue doing nothing.
This is super important. G4, g5. And now h5 should be played, and try to get to h6 probably.
There's actually, at this point, there's a very straightforward winning idea.
You don't even have to get the pawn to h6.
This is the beautiful part, I think. In fact, getting the pawn to h6, oh yeah, it's possible. You can get the pawn to h6, but you can win without it.
Straightforward winning idea.
Now you should consider what move here. You should consider the impact of this move on the position now that the structure has changed.
b5?
No.
No?
Like, what did you start with? Where was your bishop?
No, bishop c4. Yeah.
So you should at least ask yourself, maybe there is some sort of subtle change in the position that I'm not accounting for because the pawn is now on g5. So stare at this position for a little while.
I stare.
Anything interesting comes to mind?
Now f5, because if gf, you take an h5.
Exactly.
So your pawns go, it's all, yeah.
f5, and if bishop f5, then why is that easy to win?
Bishop f7, you win the h7 pawn, and it's easily winning in game. And that's why you have to put the pawn in g5 for the audience. You like, no brainer. G5 dominates 3 pawns. So
exactly. Yeah. Takes, bishop g8, bishop takes h7, and then h5 will be unstoppable.
Yep.
And if gf, we can show this on the board. If gf, and this is why you've advanced the pawn to g5, reason number 2, you take and go h5, as you pointed out.
Yeah, this is what we wanted a long time ago, but the pawns were here. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And that's the winning sequence. Bishop e2, either induce h5 or get your pawn to g5, then go back to c4, and then f5 works.
I think there's also one more just quick thing to mention here, how brutal this is. It's not g6 that wins you the game, it's h6 that wins you the game. Because the king is in the square, which is like something we take for granted, but it's actually you sack everything and the h pawn goes through
for full effect. This would be winning even without the b pawn.
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal.
But
I guess the b pawn too. Yeah.
What's interesting about that position is just that you have to. How do you solve that? Like, how do you come up with this idea? It's hard, but you have to kind of do some long-term calculation and try to understand how to make specific improvements to your position. So you kind of start by figuring out that f5 is a possible idea. And then rather than abandoning it when you realize it doesn't work, you have to try to ask, how can I change the structure on the king side in order to make f5 work? And that's when you start coming up with the idea of provoking h5.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I saw f5 doesn't quite do it. I wanted to go g4, but that also doesn't make sense. And the flank pawns are what you really should be using in these endgames. So h4, h5, right? I mean, that was like my first tactical instinct. But when I was met with some, resistance, when they didn't do exactly what I wanted, it was kind of frustrating. But then bishop e2 back, and then g4, g5, and after that I still tried to force it with h5. So that didn't cut it. You have to go back to c4 and go for that f5 idea.
Go for f5, exactly. So yeah, there's obviously many more endgames we can do, but with endgame technique, it seems to me that you struggle with that a little bit less than with middle game technique, or is it both?
I don't know. No, I mean my endgames aren't wonderful, but I think that's kind of maybe an underrated element for me. I think definitely for me it's much more staying focused through that late opening middle game phase, and then managing my time, at least in blitz, but also in classical. I don't play a lot of classical, but the same thing in classical, and just not getting lost, like not drifting, just staying focused constantly. And I will frequently like float off into the ocean,
right,
and spend like 20 minutes and play a move, and it's like absolutely not the best move, and I already spent time, and so I mean my by far my two strongest points are dynamics and like prep. Like I mean, like I get very decent positions and openings, but
Yeah, your prep is excellent. I mean, that's why I don't like playing you because of the opening.
yeah, like I mean, even like I know my stupid lines well. I can know my like my good lines well enough. But like beyond that, yeah, it's sometimes just pure deer in the headlights moment, like in the middle game, and it's definitely forcing dynamics when they're not there. And really missing my opponent's resources, like especially against good players. Like literally, like you guys play moves, and I'm like, they could do that. Like,
that could be the subject of our next lesson, which I think could be recognizing your opponent's resources and how to become a player who factors in all of the potential resources. And I think prophylactic thinking can be developed through like very targeted training. So that could be an interesting topic as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's tough because the truth is you like they say, you can't play boxing. You can't really play high level chess. Like you can't. I mean, you literally can play it, but I'm just saying in terms of you can't just do one lesson every like 6 months and go, okay, well I'm gonna get better at this. Yeah, it's a ton of targeted training. I'm not doing a whole lot about it, so I can't be frustrated with my lack of performance. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I mean, it's good to get curated subject matter from an esteemed coach who generally works with people who are half my age but the same rating. Do you do that? You train like any talented junior kids?
Yeah. I mean, mostly now that's mostly all that I do is I've offloaded some of my students because I just people just don't always understand how little time I have. Like I've got like 4 or 5 full-time things, and I've mostly kept the talented juniors.
Yeah, that's they're fun because they're really good and their ceiling is super high and they can make like moves that you go, oh god.
Wow, I didn't see that at all. Right, I don't play in a tournament.
Yeah.
No, teaching is the hardest thing that I do. Like by far, actually, like one-on-one teaching, because it's like, and we've talked about this in the podcast, and we've talked about this like in private. It's just like the energy demand is so high.
Yep. Yeah, this was awesome. I'll text you. Hopefully, we can get together soon again.
I'm down. Thanks again, Levy. I'll let you go. I'll keep streaming for a couple minutes, but I'll let you do your grocery shopping.
Yeah, awesome, man. And yeah, have a good lesson at 12.
Sounds great. My pleasure. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Take care.
Right. You too. Bye, Levy. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, people from Levy's stream as well. And I'll see you later.